Okay, you should now see live on YouTube in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can confirm that is now live.
Okay.
And I will transfer host back to you, Councillor Robinson.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon. Warm welcome to Rutcliffe Borough Council's Cabinet meeting on strange circumstances. I think this is quite historical. I think the first ever virtual Cabinet meeting in the history of the Council, I think. But a warm welcome to you. I just need to remind you that this is being live streamed onto YouTube, and a recording of this meeting will actually be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, under the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information, England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting, and the use of such images or sound recordings are not under the Council's control. All participants are reminded that to ensure the audio for the meeting is as clear as possible, all microphones should be muted as a default setting to keep the background noise to a minimum. I'd also just like to ask participants now just to confirm they can see and hear proceedings. So I'll start with members of the Cabinet. I'm just going through. So Councillor Moore?
Yes, I can hear.
Councillor English? Can't hear you.
Yes, everything's clear.
It's all right. Councillor Upton? Councillor Upton, can you confirm?
He's muted.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. Councillor Edavine?
Yes, I can hear.
And Councillor Mason?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, if I could then just ask officers. So, Mrs. Marriott? Can you hear us? Mr. Linfield?
Yes, I can hear. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, I can hear. Thank you.
And then Sanjit, Monetary Officer, you can hear us?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Can hear us on there. So, and then just other participants, so our opposition leaders. So, Councillor Gray?
I can
Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you. I can hear.
Councillor Malinder?
Yeah, no problem.
Councillor Thomas?
Yes, I can hear. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So that's there. I just say any Cabinet member who wishes to speak on an item should indicate their desire to speak by raising their hand and keeping it raised, and each will be invited to speak by myself. When you're asked to speak, please unmute your microphone by clicking on the microphone symbol at the bottom left up corner of your screen. Once you've spoken, please remute your microphone. In respect of voting, I'm going to go to each council Cabinet member and just ask you whether you support the motion or not, or the recommendation, and you are to say yes or no with that. So I think that's all the formalities. So I'll move on to the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, which we don't have, none received. Any declarations of interest? No. The minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March 2020, pages 1 to 6. Can I have a seconder to propose those minutes? That's Councillor Mason. So can I just go?
I'll second the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I then just go through the Cabinet members? So Councillor Edavine?
Yes, I approve.
Yeah. Councillor Upton?
Yes, I approve.
Councillor English?
Yes, I approve.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, I approve.
Okay, obviously Councillor Mason seconders. So those minutes have been accepted and put into book on there. Okay, so I'll just go now on to the item 4, which is the opposition group leaders' questions. So as we mentioned before, you'll be I'll ask you to ask the question. You're then allowed the second question. After that point, after you finish your questions, if you could then just take yourself off the video. Is that clear to all 4 of you on that side? Okay, excellent, thank you. So Councillor Jones, could I ask you then to put your question to Councillor Moore, please?
Yeah. Do we have a supplementary?
Yes, same question. Yeah,
okay.
that's right, yeah.
what are the arrangements during the lockdown period which apply to rent owed to residential tenants in financial hardship by charities and by SMEs in Rushcliffe?
Councillor Moore.
We do not deal directly with residential tenants from a housing perspective, but we are working very closely with registered social housing providers who have put in significant measures to support tenants financially. In terms of council tax, we have introduced a hardship policy to allocate over £500,000, and this is covered in the delegated decisions paper on this agenda. One example of this is that 1,800 residents who are in receipt of working age council tax reductions have been given a £150 reduction on their council tax. Regarding SMEs, we have proactively applied retail, hospitality and leisure business rates relief totaling around 10 million. And we've paid out business grants to 1,395 businesses totaling £17 million. That is 83% of all the businesses in Rushcliffe. There is a new discretionary business rates grant which will be allocated. Again, this is covered in the delegated decisions report. This has taken a lot of hard work, and I'm grateful to the officers for the speedy way this has been implemented. And we have had many grateful responses from residents and businesses. If businesses are in hardship, we have revised payment arrangements, and for our own tenants, we have introduced payment holidays when requested. We have also signposted business to the many government loans available. Retail charities are mainly covered by the grant and relief schemes, which I have already mentioned.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thinking of tenants who get no financial help for lost income, such as private cleaners, has the council encouraged private landlords and housing associations with which we have good relations to forgo rent for the period of lockdown? And if not, would you consider doing so?
I could only talk about housing associations, and I understand, I spoke to David Banks about this, and a lot of work has gone in to protect and make sure nobody's evicted from housing associations. But regarding the private sector, I can't answer that question. I will be happy to get some form of answer back to you within the next 7 days.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry, Mrs. Marriott.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just make a point of clarification? We've paid out over 83% of grants to eligible businesses, eligible claimants. Is not 83% of businesses in Rushcliffe?
Yeah, eligible, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Jones. Would you like to ask your second question, please? So that's to Councillor English.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Robinson. Has the establishment of track and trace arrangements resulted in the council's environmental health expertise being in charge locally?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. The contact tracing arrangements are being led nationally by the Public Health England. They're working with a range of professional bodies and the local directors of the Public Health. In turn, the directors of Public Health will be working closely with local authority environmental health teams through the local resilience forum to support the national response where and when required. However, it should be noted it's a fast-moving piece of work and it's in its very early days of implementation trials.
Okay, Councillor Jones, do you have a supplementary question?
He's muted.
Yeah, you muted yourself. Sorry, Councillor Jones, you're muted then. Could you just have the supplementary question, please?
Yes, please. So do I take it that we're confident that local people with local knowledge in environmental health will be involved, although you don't know the timescale? Thank you.
We don't as yet, no. So at the moment it's with a national level. There's 3 levels for it. There's national, regional, and it'll come down to local boroughs as well. So at the moment it's still in its trial, and they said there's not much data available as yet. So we've got to see what the national one come up with first.
Okay. Mrs. Marriott, would you like to just add?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Our own executive manager, David Banks, who has got an environmental health background, is very much involved in this work as it's progressing and developing, Councillor Jones. So yes, the local knowledge point is key, and we are working on that.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just going to take Councillor Jones. So Councillor Jones, now you're going to turn your video off.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Come on now to Councillor Mallender. Your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is when will the council be reopening the various contact centres around the borough and including the new one in West Bridgford?
Councillor Edivine.
All of the contact centres are currently closed, and we will only reopen our customer-facing contact centres when it is clear that government guidelines allow us to do so. No date is yet available. Some centres are located in buildings not managed by ourselves, and we will have to work with the service providers in these instances. We are looking at how we can work safely at West Bridgford and our other centres for both staff and customers when we do reopen. And we do, of course, continue to offer customer services from our advisors by telephone and online.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Edivine. Councillor Mallon, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes. Will the council give consideration when the centres do reopen to constructing or putting in place pop-up shelters and possibly seating outside the contact centres, as a number of shops have done locally, to provide residents with shelter from inclement weather?
Councillor Edivine.
We are looking at measures of how we manage people, so I think I can't answer that immediately. So I'll if I may, I can get back to you with an email within 7 days on what plans we might have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Mallender, if you could switch your video off now, please. Okay, next question is Councillor Gray, if you would now like to ask that question, please.
I'd first like to extend a thank you from the Labour Group to Cabinet and officers of the Council for their hard work and decisive action in this unprecedented time. We would, of course, like to support you the best we can. And our question is, how can we fulfil our role as a critical friend and work together to look at the Council's response to the COVID pandemic and be more involved going forwards?
Okay, Councillor Gray, thank you for your comments on some of the Cabinet and officers. It's very much appreciated. I think just to recognise on the forums that we've established over the last couple of years, certainly we've got the scrutiny groups, which is cross-party, and we certainly welcome the input from all groups across all parties on that. As you know, scrutiny meetings will start in July. We have the members groups, which is in the special expenses, the Development Corporation, which is being set up shortly, and then obviously the Bingham Leisure Centre, where again, appreciate your input. Group leaders meetings, which I know Councillor Gray attends, that we're holding now monthly, particularly during this period at the moment. And of course, the budget workshops, which you'll shortly be notified, which are going to be in September. And again, where we welcome to be challenged, and as we commence, as we come out of this crisis, the actual new budgets there. And lastly, Councillor Gray, is that I'm very happy I respond to both group leaders and members of your party as well with any queries. And I think through those forums there, I think there are these are good areas in which you can challenge and work with the Cabinet. You have a supplementary question, Councillor Gray?
Yes, thank you very much for your response. I'd like to just ask if you agree with me that in this new way of working, it's going to take some significant cultural change needed in the council group just to get used to this distance and online working. So I'm wondering if you agree that the sooner we start to meet online, whether this is formally or informally, the better, and that the easier we'll adjust to this change.
Yeah. So, sorry, was your question
So my question is, I suppose, do you agree with me that the sooner we start to meet, whether formally or informally, as members of the council, the sooner we'll adjust to this change?
Well, as a council, obviously, we're going to be meeting as full council, which is July. Scrutiny groups, as we've already publicly declared, are going to be meeting in July onwards. The member groups as well after full council. So I totally agree. And as you're aware, Councillor Gray, we're going to have our group leaders meetings, which we do online monthly. And as I said, I'm very happy to take either through calls or through emails any queries or challenges that you'd like to put forward with that. So I think I'm really saying I do agree. It is important that we have this communication.
Thanks very much.
Okay, Councillor Gray, if you could then just take your video off, please. On that, so go to Councillor Thomas. So if you'd like to put your question, please.
Okay, thank you. As stated in paragraph 5.3 of the report on emergency decisions, reopening leisure centres will be a challenging operation with elements of social distancing likely to be in place for the foreseeable future. With this being the case, and given the challenges developing in the budget, is the council reconsidering the timetable for the Bingham Leisure Centre capital project? And if so, are there plans for the relevant member group to meet to discuss before tender documents go out?
Councillor Redevine.
There will be a cabinet meeting in June at which a paper will be considered looking for permission to proceed to tender subject to COVID impact. The council will need to consider all capital projects not yet commenced, and we anticipate reviewing a revised budget in September. We will be looking to reconvene the Bingham member group shortly for a full update, and I've checked this morning and we are currently looking at potentially having a meeting which will be a meeting as this on June the 2nd. So details will be coming out fairly shortly.
Okay. Councillor Thomas, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Yes, I do. Has consideration been given to the fact that the design may need to be altered to facilitate social distancing, etc., going forward?
Councillor Redevine.
I'm not yet party to anything like that, and I would have to give you an email response within 7 days.
Okay, Councillor Thomas, you have your second questions there. If you give those, please.
Okay. Are there any plans to resume car park charges?
Councillor Moore.
The council will continue to follow both government advice and adopt a common sense approach in terms of when it will be the right time to reintroduce car parking charges. We will balance the impact of the decision in terms of supporting the local retail sector, and most importantly, still considering the health and well-being of the community. And lastly, the ongoing financial impact to the council. We will let the community know when this is planned in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any supplementary questions, Councillor Thomas?
No.
Thank you very much. So if you'd like to now just take your video off, please. Lovely, thank you. Okay, moving now on to item 5, citizens' questions, which we don't have any of those. And then we move on to item 6, which is myself, which is the delegated decisions for COVID-19. So this item covers an update on the council activities in dealing with the impact of COVID-19, and it highlights its decisions that were made urgently under delegated authority with the chief exec, myself as leader, and obviously the relevant portfolio holder of that. So this goes back to March 2020, and obviously this reflects the severity of the crisis at the time. And it also highlights the COVID-19 Act and also the ICT solutions that we actually put in place there. Now, these are in place. So this is in fact the first virtual formal meeting we've actually had as Cabinet. It's not anticipated that urgent decisions will need to be made in actually the same way. If I could just refer members to the table in 4.3, which lists these decisions. It actually separates them into operational and into urgent. So, for example, 24th of March, we suspended parking fees at that point, and that was urgent. And then obviously on the 23rd of March, we closed the play areas, which was an operational decision. So as you'll see in that table, it does cover everything in terms of those decisions that were made under there. Under item 5, we have the leisure facilities, and as members are aware that Parkwood operate our leisure facilities, and obviously their model is very dependent on the fees and the incomes coming from the leisure market, which was obviously closed down on March the 20th. So this was a request for financial assistance that was agreed at officer and cabinet level. This was agreed at 106k a month. Because they obviously know the impact, reflecting the impact this was. Over the 3 months, this will amount to £357,000. We obviously, at the next month's cabinet, the March cabinet, we had the agreement to go forward with Parkwood. That will obviously have to be revisited and reopened. And it's the intention there is to actually work with Parkwood after these 3 months, and obviously we will continue to review the contract and the payments as we get advice in terms of the leisure centres going forward. In terms of item 6 on here, that we have the council tax support, which support grant, which at 515k was our allocation. The details of that are actually set out on Appendix 1. You'll also just at the point there at 6.3, I just want to highlight there, the very important principle is the fund was targeted at those most in need. And that's been the underpinning principle really across all our funding that we've attempted to get out both to our residents and to our business. And this was, we felt, was the simplest and quickest policy to actually do that. You'll also see a late addition there at, I think it's at 6.5 in there, well, this was this discretionary grant. And all the details there are set out on Appendix 3 with delegated authority to Mr. Linfield, to the finance portfolio holder, and also the the portfolio for business as well. Lastly, just on the item 7 covering the Coronavirus Act involving meetings, in that we are allowed, the council is allowed to hold virtual meetings now until May 2021. The Constitution will actually be updated in July to reflect the needs for us to hold these meetings and go forward. Obviously, parallel to this, though, that we have been directed to continue with planning, and the first virtual planning meeting will actually be held on this Thursday. And details of planning are actually set out there on Appendix 2. So I would just like then to set out and like to move the recommendation set out on page 7, item 2, items A, B, C and D, as I've already covered there. And so in moving those, do I have a seconder? Councillor Mason, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I would just like to say to thank Mrs. Marriott and all her officers and staff for the work that has gone on during this time. I think it's very significant that such a lot has happened over the last few weeks. Well, it seems a lot longer than a few weeks, but that it has, all this that has happened has been because Rushcliffe, as a council, have moved very quickly on a lot of these items. The government is constantly changing and improving what they are doing and what we are doing and what will be expected of us. So I'm very happy to second this recommendation, but also to say that a lot more also will be coming towards us and will have an effect on what we do and how we work. But thank you to everybody, including the leader too, in all the work that has gone on to bring this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Would any other cabinet member like to make any comments at all? That's okay. Okay, so the proposal that's set out on page 7 on item 2 there with A, B, C and D. If I could just go then to Cabinet members to accept those recommendations. Councillor Edivine.
Yes, I accept the recommendation.
Councillor Mason.
Yes, I accept the recommendation.
Yeah. Councillor Upton.
Yes, I accept the recommendations.
Councillor English.
Yes, I accept those.
Yeah. Councillor Moore.
Yes, I accept the recommendation.
That's fine. That's carried by a majority. Just before we move on that, I'd just like to add my thanks, Mrs. Murray, if you could take back to your team. I know you've got a number of the executives here. We speak regularly, but there's a huge appreciation, I think, just both from members and also from our residents and our businesses at how well that Rushcliffe has reacted. Please, I'd like that recorded and take that back to staff as well. Thank you. Okay, if we could move then on to item 7, which is the budget update. Councillor Moore.
This report is a status report for the council on the impact of COVID-19 on the council's budget. It's a high level and will no doubt change as we know more about proposals to release lockdown. The intention is that we will be reporting the ongoing impact monthly to Cabinet with a revised budget presented at September Council. We're all aware of the graveness of the situation and the impact it has had for our community, our businesses, and ourselves as a borough council. This council welcomes the support received from government. However, it's important to note this will be insufficient, even in the short term, to meet the budget shortfall. We are currently looking at an annual budget shortfall of somewhere between £2.5 million and £4 million this year. And going forward, there are likely to be further pressures on the budget on both the council's transformation and capital programmes. I'll just focus on a few messages in this report. Section 4.1 focuses on revenue budget pressures. These are clearly linked to losses as income. And if this continues for the rest of the year, and I hope it doesn't, we will see losses of 700,000 from car parking, 440,000 from development control, 250,000 from investment interest, and a loss of rental income around 280,000 as our tenants struggle to meet rental commitments. The council, as has been already said by the leader, is incurring additional costs, and the majority of this, 1.4 million throughout the year, results from support to Parkwood Leisure to ensure the leisure centres are in a position to resume services once able to do so. Section 4.2 talks about our capital programme. There's two main risks here. The main risks are that the capital receipts we were expecting might not get at the time we expect them, and whether the amount received will be the same as we have anticipated. Secondly, the viability of our existing capital projects will need to be reassessed. Section 4.3 are what's called treasury-related issues. These will be reported in more detail through the Corporate Governance Scrutiny Group. And due to the likely impact on the revenue budget, there is scope to revise the council's minimum revenue positioning in relation to the arena. I apologise here that this is a technical term we wouldn't normally use in this report, but it's a very important fiscal lever which is available to be used by the council. In essence, the council took the prudent decision to charge £1 million per annum to the arena project over a 10-year project. This could be reduced to an annual charge over the life of the assets, which would release new homes bonus to support the budget in the medium term. Further work is being undertaken on this. Appendix C details a number of council investments which have lost capital value. These are long-term investments. It's hoped their value will correct over the next few years. Section 4 is council tax and business rates, and this is one of the unknowns at the moment, and the likely impact of collection of both council tax and business rates. We have been looking at around £500,000 down on income from council tax from this time last year. Business rates is harder to compare as there are so many reliefs, and we await now our S31 grant from government to compensate for monies not being collected. This is very much a moving picture and fairly early days, and there will be a further update in June. Now, one area which has been mentioned, but I'm very pleased about, is the success in getting out the business grants to our many businesses in the borough. At the moment, 1,395 businesses have been paid out approximately £17 million. That is 83% of all eligible businesses in Rushcliffe. We've had many grateful responses to the speed in which our officers have worked, and I'm personally very grateful to them all. This has taken a huge effort, and I know all the Cabinet appreciate this. This appreciation goes to all councillors and staff who are working so hard in the battle against COVID-19. From refuse collectors, always applauded outside my house, the housing team and planners who are all dealing with additional work or keeping the business rolling as usual. Finally, there is anticipated to be a revised budget presented at full council in September, at which stage we should have a better picture of what post-lockdown looks like. I would say that budget workshops will be held 2 or 3 weeks before this. We're just finalising the dates. I am actually, over the years, very grateful for the excellent stewardship of the council's finances. This has given us some protection to the consequences of the virus on our finances. As stated in paragraph 4, the financial resilience of the council going forward is now severely tested and will require a revised medium-term financial strategy to deliver its corporate objectives. There will be tough times ahead and difficult decisions to be made, but we are confident we have the capability to lead the council and the community through this crisis. I'm very happy to move the recommendation, which I will just read out. It's recommended that the Cabinet notes the financial impact of COVID-19 on the Council's medium-term financial strategy and supports that a revised budget is taken to full Council once there is more certainty regarding the impact of lockdown, in particular, the likely use of reserves and balances to meet the projected budget gap. Item B notes the position on both council investments and the likelihood of a change in the minimum revenue provision calculation, which will be reported to the governance group in the annual capital investment report. And finally, C supports the leader and the chief executive in making representations to government and other interest groups to unlock further funding for the benefit of Rushcliffe's community and its businesses. I'm happy to move those recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edeving.
Yeah, I'd like to second the recommendation. And I'd also like to say as well, you know, our thanks to all the officers and all of the staff who've worked so hard, and we've seen a lot of the good work that has been done. Councillor Moore has covered comprehensively the reasons behind the recommendation, and it's important that we monitor the impact of our COVID response on the future budget, and how we set that budget along with the impact on the medium-term financial strategy. And I'd also like to say that in all of this, we must not lose sight of the role of the council in revitalising prosperity of the borough as we begin to recover from this pandemic. So I'm very happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you. I think it is worth noting the government chose very early in this crisis to use the borough to get the money out as quickly as possible to businesses. It obviously had a lot of choices there, but using the rate system, it chose the borough, and I think it's a real credit to district councils across the country that they stepped up to that. And as we heard the figures, 80% plus to eligible businesses. It's been a fantastic effort. Now, Mr. Linford, you could take that back to your team as well. I know the challenges you've had, people having to do new jobs, and obviously a lot of pressure as well from businesses in terms of getting money out. And also just to say, obviously I've mentioned earlier that we are going to be holding new budget workshops in September, looking at a new budget. I think that's very prudent and it's pragmatic that we get a new budget, and hopefully that we'll have more concrete sort of information and data and facts to actually work on, to give us a working budget to the end of the, well, at least to the end of the financial year from that side. So, okay, is there any other comments at all before we take that to the vote proposed by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Edeving? So again, I will go through. So Councillor Edeving.
Yes, I support the recommendation.
Councillor Upton.
Yes, I support the recommendations.
Councillor English,
Yes, I'll support the recommendations.
Councillor Mason,
Yes, I support them as well.
yeah, Councillor Moore,
Yes, I support the
the
recommendation.
record, and also myself. So that's carried by a majority. Thank you. So we'll go to the next item then is the draft character appraisal and proposed conservation area for Cropwell Bishop. Councillor Upton.
Thank you, Chairman. This report is about Cropwell Bishop Conservation Area, the proposal. Now, for areas which fulfil the criteria of having special architectural and historic interest, a local authority has a statutory duty to designate them as conservation areas, and we have several of these already in Rushcliffe. Following representations from the Cropwell Bishop Village Heritage Group, local residents, the parish council and local councillors, for Cropwell Bishop to be considered for a conservation area, various meetings have taken place. And in accordance with best practice, a draft character appraisal has been produced. The next step in the process is for Cabinet to agree the principle of a conservation area for Cropwell Bishop and to approve the draft character appraisal, which includes the proposed conservation area boundary around the village centre and a description of the special architectural and historical characters of that area. And for Cabinet also to agree a public consultation. Following the public consultation, any comments and responses will be considered and any changes made, and the management plan also produced before another report back to Cabinet requesting a formal adoption. And if we adopt it, then a notice has to be published in the London Gazette. A copy of the draft conservation area character appraisal, including the plan of the proposed boundary, is attached to this report. And I therefore propose that Cabinet approve the recommendations on item 2, and I'll read them out, bear with me. It's recommended that A, Cabinet agree that the village of Cropwell Bishop would appear to possess qualities of special architectural and historic interest, which would warrant its designation as a conservation area under the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990. B, the draft conservation area character appraisal and proposed conservation area boundary is approved for the purposes of a public consultation to last a period of 21 days and to include a public consultation event held in the village. The timing of consultation and event will be influenced by any restrictions arising from the coronavirus pandemic. And finally, C, that Cabinet will receive a subsequent report following the public consultation, which may include a recommendation for the formal adoption of a revised conservation area character appraisal and for the designation of a conservation area for Cropwell Bishop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Upton. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor English.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I fully concur with the statement made by Councillor Upton and his recommendation to take this draft document forward to the next stage for its implementation. I'm pleased that Cropwell Bishop deserves a recognition with its unique and historical features to have a designated conservation area considered. Thanks must be given to the hard work undertaken by the Parish Council, the local heritage group, Rushcliffe's Conservation Officer, and to the Ward Councillor, Councillor Moore, by responding to the residents' initial requests and collating all the evidence which is required for the public consultation to take place. I do hope the consultation will reflect the same desire and enthusiasm that this project has generated, and that the Cabinet will be able to fully support a positive outcome in the near future, not overlooking the importance of Rushcliffe Borough Council being able to fulfil the duty under Section 69 of the 1990 Planning Act in preserving and enhancing another local area of special architectural and historical interest. I therefore second the recommendations as in A, B and C of their report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor English. I think this is very important for the village. I'm the custodian, the member for Ed Walton, which does have a conservation area as around part of it, and I've seen the advantages, particularly in planning, in making sure that we keep the character and the consistency. So I'm very much in favour of this. I think it's a big step forward, and I wish them all the very best with this proposal and appraisal going forward. Any other comments before we take this to the vote? Councillor Moore. Just 1 second, take you off.
Obviously, it's my ward, and obviously been aware of it all the way through. The Heritage Group in Cropwell, Bishop are a smashing bunch, very, very hard working. To create this conservation group, you need to be very determined and work very hard on specific areas, because not everybody's in favour of it. But I have to say, it's worked extremely well. I've been behind it, the parish council have been behind it, and obviously the Heritage Group have led it. I would like to personally thank Andrew Pegram and his previous conservation officer and the current conservation officer, who've both worked really hard on this scheme, because it can only go so far. Then we need the backing of Andrew Pegram and the conservation team. So I'd just like to add on record my thanks. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Okay, so we'll take this to the vote proposed by Councillor Upton, seconded by Councillor English. Councillor Edderby.
Yes, I support the recommendation.
Councillor Mason.
Yes, I too support the recommendations.
Councillor Moore.
I support the recommendation.
Councillor English.
I support the recommendations.
Councillor Upton.
Yes, I support the recommendations.
And I support the recommendation as well. So that's it. Okay, I think then that unless Mrs. Saul's got anything else to say, that concludes then the meeting. Is there anything we now need to do, say, at the end of this meeting? That's everything then on there. Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think we managed to get over the few hiccups at the start. I'd like to thank all the opposition leaders as well. I think it worked very well, and thank all officers for your help and assistance, and cabinet members, and I wish you a very good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.